Welcome back to this week's episode of the Face Yoga Expert podcast, where I am talking about mindfulness. I want to make this a really quick, really snappy, but really inspiring and effective episode. And I want to share with you 3 ways that you can feel calmer in your mind, your body, and your face. Now, for me, mindfulness is very much about being in the present moment, allowing ourselves to be really rooted and grounded in the here and the now. And I'm going to share a few ways that I do this myself every day, particularly as a busy working mom at 43 and definitely someone who struggles sometimes with hormonal fluctuations, definitely suffers with overwhelm, but tries my best to bring myself back into the present moment and ground myself as much as possible. So tip number 1 is breath. Now, if you've been here for a while, you will know I talk about breath and breath work a lot. If I was to give you my number 1 tip for health and well-being overall, it would be to learn to breathe effectively. When we breathe effectively, it has so many benefits for our mind and body, but it's really fantastic for mindfulness. And with mindfulness, we not only want to feel like we're in the here and the now and be fully present, but we want to try and focus on one thing. I think we live in a society where we really celebrate multitasking, and I'm all for doing a little bit of multitasking here and there, especially when it comes to things like habit stacking. But if you can just do one thing and focus on that one thing, then I really feel that that's true mindfulness. So if you can take just a few minutes each day, that's all it takes to focus on your breath and to focus on deep, correct breathing, it's going to make such a difference to helping you feel healthier and happier. So the best way to do this is breathing deep from your abdomen. Now, as you breathe in, I want you to think about your tummy like a big balloon just swelling upwards and feel as though your rib cage is moving outwards. Now, we often feel scared to push our belly out in any way, and that then means that we breathe from our chest. But this is going to strengthen and tone your tummy muscles. So don't worry, it's not going to push your belly out and keep it there or make your belly look like it's bigger. But that deep breath where you fill your lungs, you fill your abdomen with air is so effective instantly for helping to calm your central nervous system. Then as you exhale, you're going to breathe out for a little bit longer, allow your abdomen to lower back down and feel your rib cage come back inwards. Now, I always think it's good to focus on an exhalation for about a count of 6. If you can make it longer, that's fantastic, but 4 in, 6 out. That's just a simple breath. Now, the key here for mindfulness is to really watch the breath. So as you breathe in, be fully aware how it feels as you breathe in through your nose, how that air feels. Does it feel cool? Does it feel warm? Notice how that feels as your rib cage expands out and as your belly expands out and you fill that whole area with air. Then as you exhale, notice everything moving back in and notice how the air feels as it comes out your nostrils. And that simple noticing and that simple breathing is enough to do mindfulness. I think we often put mindfulness on a bit of a pedestal. And we think it's something that we have to learn for many years, or we have to go on long meditation retreats to learn it. But that alone, even if you can do one breath with complete focus, is mindfulness. My tip number 2 for mindfulness is to get outside in nature and to focus on everything around you. Again, this is something we can all do. It doesn't cost anything at all. But take yourself somewhere where it's surrounded by the trees, or maybe you live by the coast, or maybe you live in a city, but you can find an area with plants and flowers and grass. and then walk along. If you can do it barefoot, even better, because you're getting those deep grounding benefits, and focus on everything you can see. Notice, first of all, the shapes that you can see, then the colours. Then you can start to bring in other senses. What can you smell? Notice any sounds you can hear. You may even want to touch things and notice what you can touch. You may even want to taste anything if it's appropriate. For example, at the end of the summer, I was walking around and I was picking a few blackberries off some bushes and tasting those. So using as much as you can your 5 senses. And again, it doesn't have to be your whole walk. You could start your walk by doing this, focusing on everything around you. Do that just for a couple of minutes. And then if you want to listen to a podcast or listen to some music or call a friend, then go ahead and do that. You can do your multitasking then. But giving yourself just a few minutes of mindfulness will have huge benefits for your mental health and your physical health. And again, don't underestimate the power of doing something very quickly, but how effective that can actually be. And my third tip for bringing more mindfulness into your life is to do household chores with mindfulness. Now, we often look at household chores as something which is a little bit boring, maybe something which isn't good for our mental health or physical health, but you'd be surprised how much you can turn this into a mindfulness exercise. So, for example, if you're going to do some vacuuming, or you're going to do some sweeping, or perhaps you're going to do some washing up, or you're going to do some laundry, as you do it, be fully in the present. Again, use those 5 senses. Really notice everything you can see, everything you can smell, everything you can hear, everything you can touch. You will really notice a huge difference. You're probably not going to use your sense of taste here, but being in the moment rather than constantly thinking about what you've got to do next or what you've been doing earlier on in that day will make a massive difference. It's almost impossible for us to feel stressed when we're fully in the present. And even if we are completely tired, completely overwhelmed, and completely frustrated by what tasks we've got to do, I promise you, when you bring yourself into the present and you even become aware of how your body moves as you do these chores, of how your breath is, you can even start to take it a little bit further and notice the thoughts that you're having. Now, this is really taking mindfulness to another level. This is when we observe our thoughts as though we're an outsider looking in. But I would start just by focusing on the 3 things I've talked about: mindfulness with the breath, mindfulness with a nature walk, and then mindfulness with household chores. And once you've mastered that, even for a couple of minutes every day, and you've noticed how your stress levels have lowered, you've noticed how your mind feels calmer, your body feels calmer, everything feels freer, you feel happier and healthier in the present moment, then you can take it to that next level. And that is where you are literally looking at your thoughts. You're not judging them. You're not trying to change them in any way. You're simply watching them. We can't turn off our thoughts. And that's why I like mindfulness over any sort of regular meditation, because mindfulness allows us to focus on something. We've got something tangible. We've got our walk. We've got our breath. We've got our household chore. And we can actually focus on that one thing rather than trying to simply switch our mind off. But if you do want to take it that little bit further, and actually I think this is the best type of meditation, you can focus on those thoughts, watch them, almost see them like clouds in the sky, passing by one and then another and then another, rather than thinking that you have to sit still, cross-legged, clear your mind and relax. Rarely anybody can do that. Some people might be able to if they're very experienced with meditation, but generally I think we need something either tangible with the mindfulness, or we need to do an observation meditation. So have a little go at that now. In fact, we can do that together. What I want you to do is take a mindful breath. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to ask you to observe your thoughts. So let's start with the mindful breath. So closing your eyes, Take a deep breath in for a count of 4. Feel the breath fill up the belly, fill up the lungs. And then take a deep exhalation. Just feel your belly lower, your rib cage move in, the breath move out through your nose. Let's do one more. Inhale, really be aware of your body. How are those ribs expanding? And then exhale, feel your belly move in. Feel that lovely air move out through your nostrils. Keep that rhythm going. And now I want you to either imagine you're above yourself looking down, or you're at the back of your mind looking at your mind, or you're to one side, whatever feels good for you, or you're even in your mind. And then just look at what you're going to think about. Just simply watch. I don't want you to try and change what you're thinking about. It may be to do with this meditation. It may be to do with this podcast. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to simply watch. Go back to your breath again. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Maybe you want to pause the podcast for a moment and journal on how you found that. That's really good, because there's no right or wrong, but just noticing and being aware of what happened is really good. So my challenge for you over the next week is to think about how can you be more mindful of your breath? How can you be more mindful on your walks, even for the first couple of minutes? How can you spend even the first couple of minutes of doing any household chore in a mindful way? And how can you just sit for even 30 seconds every day and observe your thoughts? All of this is going to teach you to be in the here and the now and to be present. Thank you for joining me today. Take care. Bye-bye.